Yeah.
I hope some of you guys know this. We're going to sing a jazz standard or two today. And I altered some of the lyrics to fit the topic. So I'm just going to talk right before we start this. But so this is an old jazz standard, Duke Ellington, I'm Beginning to See the Light. Anybody ever sung that or heard that from way back when? In the 40s, right? I grew in college. I was part of a recreation of the Glenn Miller Orchestra. So I learned a lot of these old jazz standards and sung jazz. But anyway, I've altered the lyrics just a little bit to make this not so much a romantic love song, but a love affair with the divine within ourselves. So I'm going to start singing it, and if you can help me by snapping a little bit, and then if you know the song or catch on, please sing along with me. I never cared much for moonlit skies. I never winked back at fireflies. But now that the stars are in my eyes, I'm beginning to see the light. That's it. You guys are great. I never went in for afterglow or candlelight on the mistletoe. But now when I turn the lamp down low, I'm beginning to see the light. Used to ramble through the park, shadow boxing in the dark. Then I found that divine spark that's a 4-alarm fire now. I never made love by lantern shine. I never saw rainbows in my wine. But now that my love is burning bright, I'm beginning to see the light. Woohoo! Awesome, you guys.
Well, that one, yeah, Duke Ellington, Johnny Hodges.
Wonderful, thank you, Jessa. That was very creative. I like what you did there. Some of those old standards are so wonderful. And by the way, that's our guest musician today, Jessa Young. Let's give her a hand. Welcome, everybody. Good morning. Good morning. We're going to have a lovely service today. Our speaker is Reverend Karen Hamilton. We're so glad to have her with us again this morning, and we'll be hearing from her soon. I do want to give acknowledgments to all the people that help make Sundays happen, because it doesn't just happen by accident. A lot of work goes into it. Our board member of the week is Nora Clemens. She's also doing double duty as an usher this week. Marilyn Carlson is our chaplain of the day. Wave your hand. Thank you, Marilyn. She's our chaplain of the day. So if you would like supportive prayer, just know that Marilyn is available for supportive prayer. We do have a chapel back here, and so that's available for you too. Our Youth Ed champion today is Joyce. Our hospitality hosts are Anne, and it says and or Mary Ellen. Okay, so we have hospitality hosts. Next to Spick and Span Angels, it says all of us. So if you could pitch in a little bit at cleanup time, we would appreciate that. Thank you. Mark Swink is our technology director. Thank you, Mark, for all you do. He's responsible for what you see on the screens and the sound and all sorts of things, so we appreciate that, and the live streaming that happens on the web. And our office assistant is Susan Henderson. Susan, she does a lot of things behind the scenes, so thank you, Susan, for all you do. And I'm your lovely and helpful platform assistant, Debbie Clay. Okay, wonderful. All right, so is there anybody here this is their first time with us? No, we're all returnees? Wonderful, well then we'll just go right ahead. And I think it's time for another song.
All right, well, if we're going to have one jazz standard, we better have two, right? So now we're moving from finding that divine spark within to our interconnectedness. So I changed a couple of the lyrics in this one, but mostly they just work. So if you guys know this, feel free to sing along. All the things you are. Another Oscar Hammerstein. I'm just playing the melody a little bit here so you can hear it. Okay, we'll just do it. You hold the promised kiss of springtime that makes the lonely winter seem long. You are the breathless hush of evening that trembles on the brink of a lovely song. You are the angel glow that lights a star. The dearest things I know are what you are. This day my happy heart will own to, and this day I'll know that moment divine when all the things you are mine. Thanks for singing.
Okay. All right. So, since we're all returnees, I'm not going to read the Red Heart Welcome. I'm just going to say, I know you have it either in your pocket or at home, and remember to share your Red Heart Welcome with everywhere you go. The world certainly needs a lot of love right now, so if we can share a smile and some hope with somebody, I think that's a great blessing that we can offer people. I just want to mention a couple of things. The chaplains are going to have a meeting following the service. We'll have a little bit of time in the fellowship room, but then we'll have a brief meeting, and it's all about planning for the Christmas Eve service. And so please, chaplains, remember to join us for that, and we'll plan a wonderful service for everybody. Okay. And we have some other things coming up for Christmas time and New Year's time. I'm going to at this time call forward our board member of the week to talk about those kinds of things. Nora.
Yes.
Good morning.
Good morning.
As Debbie said, our chaplain meeting is after service for planning for the holiday Christmas Eve service. The Viability Committee will also meet today after the service on planning for the future of just keeping the church going past, and keeping things going. There's also a green feedback form in this week's bulletin regarding service choices for Sunday, December 24th. Please fill out the form and put the completed form in the bag in the fellowship area. Today was the last chance to submit your choices. The board will be making a decision next Sunday at the monthly board meeting, which is right after service. We want to remind you that we are live streaming our service, and we ask that you keep your conversations down because it is being picked up, especially during the candle lighting and paper burning. Also, please be sure your cell phones are off or on vibrate. Unity of North Kitsap has a weekly meditation on Tuesday nights. This Tuesday, December 25th at 7 p.m., there will be drumming with Walter Mahler, and he'll lead our drumming circle. And you don't need to have a drum. Everyone is welcome to join. And as somebody that's participated in drumming circles before, it's really nice. And we want to remind everyone that prayer request forms are available in the pockets and on the backs of the seats of the chairs in front of you, and you can put them in the prayer box, which is that way. And those get prayed on and then sent on to Unity Village, where they're prayed on for 30 days. And as Debbie said, the chaplains are available to pray with you after church, after service, in our beautifully, newly revisited, fixed up chapel.
Nora, and we pray over that box on Wednesday morning prayer circle now that it started very recently.
Yes, and that was the next order.
Oh, excuse me.
Because
Well, I'm psychic.
Candace has started revitalized the Wednesday morning prayer time at 11 in the morning, and it's really nice. I've attended those when I wasn't working, and those are really just really uplifting. That's the word. Thank you, Joyce.
You're welcome.
And then Seattle Unity is having their candle lighting service on Wednesday, December 20th. Festivities start at 5:30 with a light supper, an ugly sweater contest, which I want to participate in, and then a service. If you're interested in attending and carpooling, please let Debbie Lee know. There she is in the back. And then our next board meeting is next Sunday, December 10th, and we'll continue to keep you updated weekly as to any news that we have. And if you have any questions, please talk to board members. Most of us remember to wear our name tags. If you don't know who a board member is, then ask somebody. And Debbie Lee, I know, is on the board as well as myself. Thank you.
Thank you, Nora. Yes, if you are available on Wednesdays and would like to participate in that prayer service that Candace is hosting, that is a wonderful way midweek to take a little break, center in, and feel supported in prayer. I think it starts at 10:30, is that right, Nora?
She said 11.
11 a.m.? Okay, and it'll probably happen in the chapel here. So just so you know, that's available to you. Okay, time to light the Christ candle, and this represents the Christ light within each one of us. Let's say the mission statement on the screen together. We are a welcoming community supporting our mutual quest for spiritual truth. Thank you. Please put your phone on vibrate.
Sorry about that.
That'll go with our next congregational song. It's a little African.
That's right. See?
Well, she's getting us in the mood.
I thought I did.
3-minute message from God.
Yes. Thank you. Are we doing that first? Everything's Debbie.
We're gonna say that, right? Speak that.
Oh, okay, let's say this together.
There's one presence and one power active in the universe and in my life. God the good, omnipotent.
Handshakes and hugs.
Yeah.
Okay, now turn that music back on.
Debbie, are you having leftovers from yesterday?
No, I guess I'm forgetting. Okay, handshakes and hugs. If you hug gently.
Oh, yeah.
Two.
That's right, okay, come on.
Maybe it was appropriate.
We're going to do one of our favorite chants that we do a lot when I'm here. But I got inspired by her cell phone screen, and I'm going to make some chant music to go with it today. Hey, na 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 na, happy say. Hey, na 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 na, happy say. Baba la kumbala la kumbala, happy say. Baba la kumbala, happy say. Hey, na 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 na, happy say. Hey, na 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 na, happy say. Baba la kumbala, happy say. Baba la kumbala, happy say. Happy say, happy say.
First Sunday in Advent. Sometimes it's called hope, but if your hope is powerful enough, then it's truly faith. And according to the Daily Word, it's faith this year. Powerful. Faith. Spiritual understanding is always available through my Christ self. My mind knows what it knows through the input of my senses and experiences. While practical choices can be easily made through this knowledge, spiritual understanding is not a function of mind. I access it when I am prayerfully centered in the energy of my heart. It is not always specific, and it may not seem immediately relevant. Spiritual understanding provides me with a feeling of security and peace, a sense of being exactly where I am meant to be at any given moment. Spiritual understanding guides me through every choice. In faith, I know that God's power is greater than any circumstance, and I call upon that energy for every choice or decision. From Jeremiah 33, verse 3, "Call to me, and I will answer you, and will tell you great and hidden things that you have not known." It's the first Sunday in Advent, and I'm also just taking this. Marilyn will decide this. I'm going to also read from the Advent book that I love so.
Go for it.
Woman Power. Refers to Mary here too. Before I read this, just faith. From the Advent booklet. I yesterday, was it yesterday or the day before? Anyway, very recently I saw The Star, the movie, the animated film. And it's charming. People say, oh, that's for kids. No, it's for the young in heart. But it's the Bible story. It's the nativity story, but it's all through the critters. All the critters. Except there was no cat in the barn. And being a cat person, I thought that was a very apparent leave out. There was even a mouse, but not a cat. But anyway, it's charming, and as the credits rolled on the end, in print, they had acknowledged that this is playful, but it also is true to the real story. You know, that's true to our hearts. But anyway, I mention that because Mary figures here. First Sunday in Advent, living faith. The same faith that was in young Mary as she set out on her journey to Bethlehem is available to me. It is part of my spiritual inheritance, a very part of my being. Like Mary, I hold my faith when the way is unclear. I release any worry, doubt, or fear and listen to the still, small voice within. I open my heart to divine guidance. As I quiet my thoughts and become still, the answers come. My needs are met and all is well. And from Matthew 6, verse 30, but if God so clothes the grasses of the field, which is alive today and tomorrow thrown into the oven, will he not much more clothe you, you of little faith? Living faith. God bless us.
I'm throwing things on the floor.
So this is a chant that came to me when I was standing by the Skycomish River at night. I had taken a walk from our little hotel room I don't know, I just call it the train town, because you stay in the hotel and no matter where you stay, the train goes by and it's really loud, but there's a beautiful path that leads to the Skycomish River, and my songs today, in harmony with what I feel the message is about, or will be about, is focused on oneness. So this little chant I'd love you to sing with me, and I'll just start singing, and it's very easy to catch on to. I am like the stars shining, shining. I am like the stars shining in the dark. Let's do that again. I am like the stars shining, shining. I am like the stars shining in the dark. I am like a candle burning, burning. I am like a candle lit from a single spark. I am like the river flowing, flowing. I am like the river flowing to the sea. I am like the trees breathing, breathing. I am like the trees that breathe life into me. I am like a rock standing, standing. I am like a rock standing on a hill. I am in my heart feeling, feeling. I am in my heart feeling deeper still. So this is a song I wrote. It's on my first album. Some of you, I think, know this song or have heard it, and it's Orange Roses. Orange roses bloom longer. Highway I didn't see them for a long time, until one day about the body, idol, what true beauty is when it comes from the soul. I ran naked through the rain, and from deep within the flowers came. First I saw them all around me, everywhere within myself. When I was 20, when I dismissed anyone, didn't see me on the skin deep. When I'm 60, I hope I look in that mirror and see young girl while the laughter, while the clutter, while the broken pieces, I find myself like orange roses as their petals fall through the air like rain, oh, like rain. Orange roses, like rain, fall through the air, like rain.
Thank you, Jessa. And now our speaker, Reverend Karen Hamilton.
Is that working? Good morning.
Morning.
It happened in the middle of the night. Perhaps one might say it happened in the middle of his night. Maybe 2 in the morning. The streets were completely dark and deserted. Not a soul in sight. At least he hoped so. There was someone out there in the middle of the night, in the dark, jumping from shadow to shadow. Who was it? His name was Nicodemus. Yes, you're remembering correctly. The original Nick at night, right? Apparently, no sunrise yet as he jumps from shadow to shadow. And you know, you have to wonder, what the heck is he doing out there in the middle of the night? Why is he coming all the way across town in the dark to see Jesus, who is staying with friends? You see, Nick is a big shot. He is the leader of a spiritual mega community. And he's the sort of person that can walk anywhere, day or night. In fact, if he's crossing a street, people just part and make a path for him. He never even has to touch a doorknob, because as soon as he extends his hand, somebody else opens the door for him so that he can go through. Nicodemus is Mr. Big. So what's he doing coming in the middle of the night to see this itinerant preacher? Don't you kind of get the sense that there must be a longing, a deep ache in his soul? This stranger in the night. Well, as I imagine it, they wake up Jesus, and then he comes to the front to meet this guest. And then they open this conversation. And it's actually, the opening lines are some of the strangest opening lines I have ever heard for a conversation. So catch this. Nicodemus says, "Rabbi, you must come from God, because nobody could do what you do unless they were filled with the Spirit." And then Jesus' response, it just seems like it's missing it. It seems like they're on completely different wavelengths. Jesus says, "Unless you are born anew, you will never see the kingdom of God." So Nicodemus comes, he gives Jesus the compliment, and that was Jesus' response. So just imagine yourself, if you were to drive all the way from Bremerton to Federal Way this evening in the rain to give me a compliment. "Reverend Karen, you must have been filled with the Spirit today, the way you spoke. Wouldn't you at least think I would say, thank you?" What if I said to you instead, "You know, it's 1,200 miles from Kansas City to New York City." So that might be a true fact, but what does that have to do with the compliment? So at first glance, it seems like they're kind of on different wavelengths, doesn't it? But actually, they're not so much. What Nicodemus is doing is using an old tradition where Pharisees, spiritual leaders, would add up almost like a scorecard to determine whether somebody was a true prophet or not. So, for example, if others had ecstatic experiences in your presence, or if you gave a prophetic proclamation, they would add these things up together and let you know if you were a true prophet. And so what Jesus is doing is saying, you can't get there from here. That's not how spiritual things work. So what Jesus said is, let's see here. So he said, you have to be born anew in order to see the kingdom. And that was his way of saying that you can't get here from there. But poor Nick, he's not big on metaphor, and he's not really a poet, is he? Jesus is creating an image to talk about spiritual things, and Nicodemus is on a different wavelength. He is tied into the physical world and the information that he gets from his senses, his 5 senses. And he actually thinks that Jesus is talking about gynecology. So when he says you need to be born anew, Nicodemus asks this question. He says, how do I re-enter my mother's womb? So now that's kind of crude, but it's in the book. I'm not making this up. And you just can't make up this kind of stuff, can you? So Jesus answers by saying, verily, verily, I say unto you, except one is born of water and of the Spirit, one cannot enter into the kingdom of God. That which is flesh, and that which is spirit is spirit. You must be born anew. Jesus then gives us a little bit more of a clue about what he's talking about. And he says, the wind blows where it will, and you don't know where it comes from, and you don't know where it's going. But if you pay attention, you can hear the sound, and you can feel the breeze on your face. It's very mysterious. So the two of them talk a little bit more, but Nicodemus doesn't ever really get it. So this morning, I wanted to talk about this topic of being born anew. So we know in unity that the kingdom of God, the kingdom of heaven, the kingdom of the Father is a state of consciousness, right? We believe what Jesus said, that the kingdom of God is within and it's present and available right here, right now. It's a state of consciousness. And metaphysically, Nicodemus, who is a Pharisee, represents a separatist, a literalist, somebody that's stuck in both the past and the future, but they're not present right here, right now. Okay? You can identify, right? We've all been there. Nicodemus is one who is entirely at the service of his thoughts, and those thoughts are originating exclusively from his intellect and his five senses. He's not operating on a spiritual plane. So we're all quite aware that first birth, the birth of water, is our physical birth, right? We leave our mother's womb surrounded by water and enter this earthly life. But what does it mean exactly to be born of spirit? How do you know if you have been born of spirit? So we know that we existed before our physical birth, right? And we are each like that certain man that Jesus spoke of in the parable, the Good Samaritan. You know, we've given it that title, and we often forget that the person who asked him the original question, there were two questions asked. The person who asked was a Pharisee, maybe even Nicodemus, somebody like him. And they asked, what do I have to do to gain eternal life? And then they asked another question, and then Jesus told this parable about a certain man, and that would be each one of us, who left Jerusalem, left the heavenly city, the city of eternal peace, and descended to Jericho along the red road. So Jerusalem is symbolic of a heavenly state, right? And it's actually downhill to Jericho, and Jericho is actually the single lowest city on the face of the earth. It's below sea level, and it represents earthly life here. In fact, that city was the playground of King Herod, next to the Dead Sea. And that red road was a treacherous road, full of danger. And so as this certain man, as each one of us descends and travels along this red road, thieves come upon us and strip us of our raiment, our glory, and leave us, according to Jesus, half dead. And I've always felt that it's fascinating that Jesus specified just how dead. One half dead. So we know that as spirit descends into matter, there's a veil of forgetfulness, right, that comes upon us. And we forget our spiritual nature, our identity as that I am presence. And wouldn't you say that's as though we are half dead? We're just relying on these fleshy bodies, and we're ignoring, in our consciousness, we're not aware of that other half of our identity, of who we really are. So until we remember or have an at-one-ment experience, until we have a personal, intimate encounter with the I am presence, our Christ presence within us, it's as though it's non-existent for us, right? Because it's out of our consciousness. So the spiritual birth is remembering and having a personal, intimate experience with this presence. And that's the healing that happens. That's when we can step into our wholeness and perfection. All right. So the question that each one of us can ask ourselves is, have I been spiritually born anew? And what is involved? How does this happen? And so if we're still in the Gospel of John, and all of the answers are actually right there in their first few chapters. And if you'll remember, this Gospel starts off with the words, "In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God," right? Through the Word, all things were made. And in the Word was life, and that life is the light of all mankind. So Charles Fillmore, the Unity co-founder, said that word, the word or logos, represents our spiritual identity. It's our spiritual I am presence. And it's waiting, we all have it, we're all part of that one I am presence. And it's waiting to be birthed and embodied, birthed within these bodies. I think a few months ago I told you about an interview that the Dalai Lama had, and somebody asked him, what is the purpose of life? Do you remember the answer? He roared, he laughed first. So he did that for a few minutes. And then he calmed down, and he kind of came in, and he got really serious and pointed. And he said, the purpose of life is to embody the transcendent. So the purpose of life is to bring into our body that which is beyond our true nature, our Christ or higher self. Is to bring heaven to earth. That's how Jesus said it. Okay, it's to embody, to be a living embodiment of who we are in truth. So this Gospel of John continues with this story. So are you with me so far? You know, we have this spiritual identity, it's the Word, and it wants to be birthed and embodied also in these fleshy bodies that we have. And so this is how it happens. There was one sent from God whose name was John the Baptist, right? He came as a witness to testify concerning that light, so that through that light all might believe. John is not the light. He came only to witness to the light. So metaphysically, who is John the Baptist? Right, our intellect. So John represents our intellect that has come in contact with truth and recognizes that this is true. You know, has that, you just have that gut feeling, this is true, right? You know it in your mind, you know it at your gut level, but it hasn't been spiritually quickened yet. And that's what Charles Fillmore said. The purpose of the intellect, this intellectual knowledge, is to lead us to this new birth experience. And so this knowledge helps us to prepare ourselves and to make arrangements in our life so that we can avail ourselves to this spiritual birth. Okay? So that these directions continue in the Gospel of John. The true light that gives light to everyone was coming into the world. The light was in the world, and though the world was made by this light, the world did not recognize it yet. But all who do receive this light, to those who believed in this light, has been given the right to become children of God. Children born not of a natural descent, nor of human decision, but born of God. So the Word became flesh, dwelling among us. We have seen its glory, the glory of the one and only Son who came from the Father, full of grace and truth. And so often when we read those passages, we think of it in personal terms, right? but there's a greater, grander vision for these words that encompasses all of us. It's a non-personal message that is here for us collectively, right? Because collectively we are the child of God, right? We are collectively the one Son of God. So let me just kind of summarize. We were spiritual beings right before we were birthed. We went through the birth of water into these fleshy bodies. We received this intellectual understanding, right? And everybody here, you wouldn't be here if you hadn't received that. And oftentimes that comes from a source that we least expect, right? John the Baptist was a wild man that wore skin, coats of skin. And in the story of the Good Samaritan, the helpers, the person who came to help was a Samaritan. So this knowledge comes sometimes from a source that we don't even expect it. So then that points us towards the truth, and it fills us with a zeal and an excitement to want to fully embody. We're just not going to rest until that knowledge becomes fully available and embodied by us, right? And so that leads us then to prepare ourselves for a direct, personal, intimate experience with our I am presence, so that it is actually birthed and embodied by us while we're still on this earth. So I want to just give us 4 suggestions, 4 ideas that we can use to help facilitate this birth within us. And many of us have had this experience, but as humans, we're prone to wander, right? We're prone to leave and forget the God we love, the I am presence. We need to be reminded, and so this is an experience that we can have over and over again, and every time we have it, we have the opportunity of having it at an even deeper, a more profound level of it. And Christmas is the most perfect time to prepare ourselves for this experience, because it's the darkest time of the year, right? Yeah. It's the time when we can go within and avail ourselves to this gift. So my first suggestion is that we become an open, receptive vessel, right? So think of the Virgin Mary. In fact, our reading this morning was perfect. She was willing, wasn't she? And we say that she's a virgin because her thoughts were not contaminated by ideas that would prevent her from being willing to accept this experience. And what were the words that she said to the angel when he announced that she would conceive and give birth to the Christ child? Remember, she said, be it unto me. She said, I am the willing servant. Yes, what you just said, I will do that. So that kind of leads into the second. So we want to be open, receptive container, right, for this experience. And what just came to my mind was the experience that Jesus said, you don't put new wine in old wineskins. Why is that? Because new wine is symbolic of the living energy of life, right? It's growing and expanding, it's fermenting still, it's effervescent. And so if you pour new wine into old wineskins that are hard and brittle, they're like concrete, all mixed up and firmly set, right? So they'll burst, they'll break. And so we want to be vessels that are like new wineskin, that allow for growth. There's room for expansion in there. So the first one is to be an open, willing vessel. The second idea is to be willing, to exercise our faculty of being willing and allowing. Willing and allowing. Did you know that you don't have to have any evidence or proof of something before you are willing and allow experience. So did Mary have any evidence or proof that all would be well with her when it's not, in fact, it's a spiritual principle that we exercise, that we're willing first, and we have faith and trust and allow first, and then the fruits of that manifest after, right? We don't ask for signs ahead of time. Signs come after we exercise our trust. Okay, the third idea is to practice holding our consciousness steady. So our consciousness is like a mirror. It's a light and a mirror, right? And it reflects back to us what's going on in our mind. And our mind is a clear, light-filled vessel. It's made out of the source of all life, the living energy of life, the I am presence. But the thoughts that we have can sometimes be dark, right? The vessel never changes, and nothing we can do or say would ever change the quality of the vessel. But our thoughts could, those are always coming and going and different. And we need to develop the ability to be able to pick what we're going to concentrate and focus on, and then hold our attention there. In fact, the mystics and the desert fathers, yogis, all say that it's important to do little exercises to practice holding our attention, and that we need to be able to do that before we can really enter a deep state of meditation. And they go as far as to tell us exactly how long we should be able to hold our concentration on one point to be able to meditate effectively. How long do you think that is?
As long as it takes.
They give a number. So what do you think?
It's like 3 seconds. Very short.
12 seconds.
Oh, really? Yeah.
So if we can hold our concentration on one point for 12 seconds, then this is according to the yogis and mystics, then we're prepared to enter a deep state of meditation. So,
We can do it. Yeah, there's no person.
in the Bhagavad Gita, which is a Hindu text as old as the Bible, there's two characters, Arjuna, who's a teenage boy who represents the spiritual aspirant, so he would represent all of us, and then Krishna, who represents the Christ presence. And Arjuna says, the mind wavers, Krishna. It's turbulent, impetuous, forceful. I think it's harder to hold than the wind. And Krishna, the I am presence, says, without a doubt, the wavering mind is hard to hold, but through practice, it may be held firm. For the one whose mind is uncontrolled, union is hard to obtain. But for the one whose mind has been brought under his sway, who is controlled, it may be won. So we want to think about incorporating little exercises that help us develop our ability to hold our focus on what we choose. And then the fourth idea is to allow ourselves time to enter the silence, right? That's actually how unity was started. So entering the silence, time for meditation, and this is the most ideal time, right, in the winter to engage in this kind of a exercise when it's dark outside. It's like a womb light experience. So when we're meditating, when we're holding the silence, what is the single biggest complaint that people have, do you think?
Monkey mind.
Our monkey mind, right? Wandering thoughts. So how many of you, a couple of weeks ago, there was an article in the newspaper. In fact, there were YouTube clips. It was on the news. It was everywhere. President Trump feeds fish dumps fish food in the water. Did you guys see that? So, and the media just had a heyday with it. Well, what really happened is the president or the leader of Japan and President Trump went to this koi pond, a fish koi pond. They both had a box of food. They were sprinkling it out to the fish, and then the Japanese president dumped his in, and so Trump just followed and dumped his in. But the media didn't say that, and they went wild. You know, they wanted to know if that food was even healthy for the fish. You know, they went in all these different directions, right? Monkey mind. So, how many of you have had an experience feeding fish, koi fish? What were you focused on?
They would just gather together.
It's
Watch
like
it,
almost over,
watch.
they're like a ball
Yeah.
of mass
A
that's
mass
just
of That's-
churning through the water,
Yeah,
right?
Yep.
Yeah. Were you focused on the water at all? No, because the fish are moving and
Yeah.
they're glittering and sparkly, and it's like you don't know exactly where they're going to go, so that's what you focus on. Well, that's like our mind, right? There's all these fish thoughts. And so we have to learn to not feed the fish and instead direct our attention on the water, the living water that is the substance and source of who we are, the clear, sparkling, high vibrating energy of life. So if we can kind of look at those thoughts and just think of them as like fish and like, okay, they're there, but bring our attention to the water, the living source of our life. And the more we can do that, we can identify with both, right? We can see and respond to the fish, but we don't get caught up because we're identifying as the water, the living water, the source, the I am presence. All right, so what are the 4 ideas?
12 seconds.
I have a little handout for you. So we want to be an open, willing vessel, right? We want to, what was the second one?
Stay flexible.
Don't be the fish, that was the fourth one. Yeah.
Be willing.
Be willing and allow, yes.
Wow, right.
And that is huge. They say that if we are willing and will allow something to happen, that makes creation proceed with more grace and ease than if we think we have to be in control or figure everything out ahead of time. So we have to open up and actually be willing and allow things to happen. Then the third idea was to practice holding our concentration steady. And then the fourth is to actually, so it's like all of those other things are like a GPS and a map that gets you to the church on time, right? But you still have to get out of the car and walk through the front door. So we have to set up time to enter the silence and to meditate. Charles Fillmore would sit on his front porch in a rocking chair every evening at the exact appointed time, and he would rock and practice this and allow himself to go into this state, identifying with the I am presence. And we do that until we have a direct, personal, intimate experience as the source of life, as the I am presence. And that's actually the best gift we could give ourselves and the world, isn't it? Because it changes our perspective, it changes our vibration and how we act in the world. So just to conclude, we are the I am presence, right? We are all clear light vessels. Nothing we can do in this life could ever change that. But until we have this experience, it's as though it's not available to us, right? And I just have a little story to help us to picture this. There were 2 men who were childhood friends. They grew up together and they shared all their secrets with each other. One day, one of the men talked to the other one. He says, I want to tell you a secret. And I haven't even told my wife or my son. I recently came into a large sum of money and I've hidden it underneath my house. And I don't want to tell my wife because she's not necessarily that great with money. And I don't want to tell my son because he's already spoiled. But if anything were to happen to me, please tell them that there's this large sum of money under the house for them. And then the friend went on a vacation. He was gone for a couple of years. When he returned, he saw the wife and the son, and they were digging through garbage cans and begging for food. And he was aghast. He couldn't believe it. And he walked up to the woman. He said, "Sister, do you remember who I am?" And she said, "Yes, you're my husband's best friend." And he said, "Why are you begging? Why are you living like this?" And she said, "Well, shortly after you left, my husband passed away. And for a while, we had money enough to take care of our needs. But then we ran out, and thank goodness we at least had a house. But to eat, we have to scrounge and beg for food." And the man said, "Oh no, before I left, your husband told me that he had a large sum of money for you, and it's buried under the house. Let's go get it." Well, in that moment, as soon as he said those words, the son and the woman didn't feel poor anymore, right? They trusted him. And all of a sudden, it was just huge relief. And they didn't feel poor. So they went to the house, they pulled up the floorboards, dug down, and they hit, the chest. They pull it up, they take off the lid, and it's filled to the brim with gold. So this is the question. Was that woman rich before she actually had possession of the money? She had it, but it was of no use to her, right? She actually had to actually have it and know about it. And so the same is true with us. We are that I am presence. But until we actually have an experience and embody it, it's not of use to us, right? We're going to be scrounging and begging for everything that we need in life. So ours is the opportunity in this life of bringing heaven to earth, of enlightening matter. And as we allow our consciousness to rest in the present moment, as we become acquainted with this living energy and spirit of life, and as we identify with it, this spiritual birth will take place to us and allow us to step into and inherit or accept our wholeness and our perfection, our glory as clear, light-filled, radiant beings of light and love, filled to the brim with life. So are you ready for a little meditation? We'll put some of this to use. So I invite you to get comfortable. Buddha said to sit tall and straight, but relaxed. So there's like a happy medium in there where we're tall, we're straight, but we're relaxed. And as we breathe in, I just invite you to let your chin slightly move up. And then as you exhale, just let your chin slightly drop. Because what I have discovered and learned is if we freeze our body up, our mind is more prone to wander. If we allow ourselves to stay relaxed and have a little bit of movement, we're less likely to have our mind wander. Just notice that when your mind is wandering, usually your neck is frozen. So just focus your attention on your breath. Just let your breathing bring you into the present moment. Just allow your mind to settle. And we're going to focus on the water, the living water. Just hold your attention and focus on the living water, the sparkling. It's a more subtle, energetic vibration. So now just allow your attention to expand and just to encompass your entire sphere of experience, of consciousness. Your mind is like a vast sea of awareness. And your thoughts are like fish swimming through that clear, spacious awareness. And so as you notice these fish as they swim into your consciousness, remind yourself that they could not be there swimming unless there was some substance to swim in. And then bring your attention back to the clear, light, spacious water in which the fish thoughts are swimming. And just know that as you identify more and more with this crystalline, clear, light-filled, intelligent, sentient, sparkling water of life, just notice how your emotions are calmed and how those fish-like thoughts begin to diminish. They don't carry you away. And instead, you are uplifted into an open, spacious place of calmness, stillness, peacefulness, and silence. And as we allow ourselves to rest in this space, we begin to discern more easily what is temporal, changing, non-permanent, and what is constant, abiding, permanent. The I am presence that is full of light and grace and truth. That is the truth of who we are. I invite you to dedicate this experience, all of the positive energy that has been created through the practice during this meditation, to allowing yourself to be more open, to act in more skillful ways, to being an even greater presence and transmitter of light and love, one who is at peace in life and who by example brings more peace and well-being to others in each moment of the day. So allow all of the light and expansion that you have experienced to integrate into the cells of your being, to reinform the patterns of your energy field. Welcome and embrace this change and know that you are this light. You are this spaciousness. Let it be so and it will always be available to you. So take in a deep breath. And as you exhale, smile. And when you're ready, open your eyes. So our great opportunity is to bring heaven to earth, to give birth to spirit while in these fleshy bodies. So I invite you to remember that you are this light. That is who you are. Thou art that. This is your home. And so it is. Amen.
We're going to be having a time of sharing an offering shortly, so I invite you to take your offering in your hand. As you're preparing your tithes and love offerings, think about how blessed you are. And as you're writing your check or giving a gift, send your blessing out. I'll be lighting the candle here in front of us in case you want to light a candle either for yourself or a loved one. And also there'll be papers available on that little table over there if you'd like to release something into the flame.
We are born in innocence, and we sparkle like the stars, and our beauty becomes pain, and our laughter becomes rain. So bring it down, let it go. And now we've been through this before, we'll survive it again. Come on, let me grab a love bomb into your landmine and watch you explode. I don't really wanna hurt you, but I wanna see if you can just let go. Let go of the story. Let go. Let go of the story. There are shadows in your eyes. Why do you see me through a glass more darkly? Why is it that our wounds seem to lie beneath our greatest light? Come on, let me throw a love bomb into your landmine and watch you explode. I don't really wanna hurt you, but I wanna see if you can just let go. Let go of the story. Let go. Let go of the story. Well, you're so afraid of that your beauty will outshine all the stories you've made up, all the false things you've lived by. So let it go, release control of the fireworks in your soul. It'll be more beautiful than the 4th of July. Come on, let me throw a love bomb into your landmine and watch you explode. I don't really want to hurt you,
Okay, if the ushers could circulate, please. Okay, if we could have the usher come forward, and Marilyn, could you represent the chaplains, please? And together as a congregation, we're going to bless this offering. The blessing is on the screen. So together, I give willingly, joyfully, and lovingly, knowing that God is the constant source of my supply. I give with graciousness and receive with gratitude. Thank you. Thank you. Okay. All right. A reminder that following the service, we will have a chaplain's meeting. Okay. Good news. Does anybody have any good news to share? Yes, Nora.
I saw Tracy Friday in Hawaii, so she's back up and doing that. She's really excited. She looked really good, was sounding well, speaking well, and she said she watches us, so I told her we'd give her a big shout out to Hi Tracy.
Hi, Tracy. If you're watching on the streaming web.
She had some possibilities of doing some things, so wasn't able to make it today. But, she was doing well.
Wonderful, wonderful. Anybody else with some good news?
I have some.
Oh, hi, Mary Ellen. Yes.
We have flower cards. Those of you that bought last year, your flower card is about up. So you get 12 bouquets, one a month. And so you come and see me if you would like to renew your flower card or if you'd like to purchase one. Thank you.
And they make a lovely gift. The recipient needs to live locally, by the way, because the flower shops are here in Kitsap County. But anyway, it's a lovely gift, so think about that. Okay. Food for life. Oh, you have a good news to share?
Yes. Last night we had a banquet for wildlife, the Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation, and we raised a lot of money to benefit wildlife. And what they do is they buy land, restore it to the wild, and then turn it to the state as recreation property. And they've done over 7 million acres that way.
Great.
So I think it's a wonderful way to make sure my grandchildren's children have a wild place to go.
That's definitely a good
That is lovely. We have an outreach to the homeless. We call it the Food for Life program. So people take a bag home with them and they fill it with non-perishable items. These would be things that would be easily carried for lunch purposes. Would anybody like to take the bag and fill it up with non-perishable items and bring it back next Sunday? Thank you, Debbie Lee. I'll get you the bag later. Thank you for that. Okay. Were there any children in the Sunday school today? No. Okay. Let's have our closing, let there be peace on earth, and closing prayer, please.
And my forward.
There be peace on earth, and let it begin with me. Let there be peace on earth, the peace that was meant to be. With God as Creator, family all are we. Let us walk with each other in perfect harmony. Let peace begin with me. Let this be the moment now. With every step I take, let this be my joyous vow. To take each moment and live each moment in peace eternally. Let there be peace on earth, and let it begin with me. The light of God surrounds us,
Amen.